Well, he told us that he had a warrant for Flora's arrest, and I asked him to prove it to me, and he says, I don't have to show you anything.
Cover your face, cover your eyes, okay? Are you gonna come out or no?
You're not able to do that.
Flora, don't. Flora, Flora, don't.
What? Can I say goodbye to my other child?
No, we're right now we're being extremely nice to you. What you just put us through, what we had to go through, you're lucky that I'm letting you talk to her right now.
It's gonna be fine, Zeke.
No, it's not. I'm scared.
I want them to go. I don't want them to take us. Zeke, it's okay.
I don't want to get again.
New troubles for the Trump administration's immigration agenda. This is coming out of the courts, plus pressure in Congress and some reaction around the country. Let me show it all to you. First, a federal judge just blocked Trump's highly controversial attempt to try to restrict most asylum claims from Central American migrants. The judge says it's arbitrary and capricious, and that means it won't be enforced right now. Meanwhile, Democrats in the Judiciary and Appropriations Committee grilling border officials about recent government watchdog findings about those poor conditions we've been reporting on. Some children denied access to basics like showers, uneven hot food. Meanwhile, Judiciary Chair Nadler pressing a top border official about Trump's child separation policy.
Mother and father informed, and the kids, I mean, how is it supposed to happen? The mother and father is informed that at some point today, your kid is going to be taken away. In the middle of the night, someone comes and snatches the kid. I take it that's not what is supposed to happen. What is supposed to happen?
So we would inform the mother or father of the charges and the reason, and provide them the time to say goodbye to the child.
The charges and the reason and the time in advance?
Yes.
How far in advance?
It's going to vary depending upon the situation.
Vary from what? Hours, minutes, seconds?
I don't know what specific one you're talking to.
What's the minimum time?
Don't have a minimum time.
So it could be 10 minutes?
Could be.
Nadler then dug in on what he is now calling the Trump administration's policy of, quote, literal kidnapping.
After it was determined that the adult was being deported, was the child supposed to be returned to the parent before the deportation, or the parent is suddenly in some foreign country and the child is here?
It's probably a better question for HHS.
Who did the deportation?
We would do the deportation.
You would do the deportation while the child was in a different city in the United States?
We don't do the reunification, is my point, sir.
But you would do the deportation before the reunification without any knowledge of whether the parents are being reunified?
Yes.
So in other words, you're kidnapping the child?
Not kidnapping the child. We follow the guidelines that are out.
Deporting a parent without their child is literal kidnapping.
That is the kind of oversight we're seeing on these important issues. Remember, the Trump administration's claimed they don't do family separation anymore. The truth, more complex. Meanwhile, there are videos that have emerged first on social media and then are spreading to news organizations, going viral, showing the toll that deportation arrests can have on families. Now, I'm going to warn you, as we do with this kind of thing, that what you're about to see may be very hard to watch, but it's also important to bear witness to.
Well, he told us that he had a warrant for Flora's arrest, and I asked him to prove it to me, and he says, I don't have to show you anything.
Cover your face, cover your eyes, okay? Are you gonna come out or no?
You're not able to do that.
Flora, don't. Flora, Flora, don't.
What? Can I say goodbye to my other child?
No, we're right now we're being extremely nice to you. What you just put us through, what we had to go through, you're lucky that I'm letting you talk to her right now.
It's gonna be fine, Zeke.
No, it's not. I'm scared.
I want them to go. I don't want them to take us. Zeke, it's okay.
I don't want to get again.
These videos are spreading, and they're driving a conversation, activism about this, precisely because people are asking, is that what immigration enforcement should look like? Has it always looked like that? Are these deliberate choices that start in Washington from the Trump administration and then are carried out this way? Now, we want to show you one other thing before I bring in my expert, and that is other people responding. Here's some video that was posted Monday showing neighbors and activists in Nashville linking arms in a human train around a van to protect a man and his son from potential arrest by ICE agents. Now I want to bring on Professor Victoria DeFrancesco Soto from the University of Texas, an expert in these issues. Your response?
Despicable and disgusting what we saw in your previous video. What has been triggered with the Trump immigration policy, especially these very rigorous ICE enforcements, is fear and panic, and the type of fear and panic that we saw in that video. However, the silver lining that we saw a bit of in that second video, Ari, is that the community is standing up. So even though you are undocumented in this country, you do have rights. In order to be taken away by ICE, they have to show you a warrant signed by the judge. If you open the door, then they can take you. But if you keep your door closed and they don't have a warrant or you're still in your car, they can't take you away. And what we've seen is it spread like wildfire. Educational workshops, the Know Your Rights campaign, Conozca sus derechos, where immigrants and immigrant advocates are helping people know what to do in a situation that they may face. So this has been the fact. Interestingly enough, we've seen government officials showing immigrants and immigrant advocates how to push up against the government. So infamously, the new governor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, was passing out Know Your Rights cards throughout Chicago. We've seen a lot of the Democratic candidates putting on their websites the Know Your Rights. So I think that this is very important, but we can't forget that at the end of the day, if you are an immigrant, you live in constant fear, in constant agony, because you feel that you are literally someone with a target on their back. And that's not going to change until we see Donald Trump out of the White House.
You put it very well. And the other thing I want to ask you is you referenced the duality we saw there in the stories we just told. And there's also a larger duality between the humanitarian heartbreak of this, when you see the impact on so many people, and then the fact that, not minimizing or dismissing that at all, in other ways, the system does still push back against what Trump is trying to turn this enforcement into. I want to give two examples for your analysis. One is straightforward. A person who was unlawfully detained, so the people who are supposed to follow the law end up violating it. Francisco Galicia telling border agents that he was a citizen, giving them what he's supposed to do: state ID, Texas, Social Security card, federal, wallet-sized birth certificate. But that didn't prevent 23 days of detention, losing 26 pounds because of what they say were the denial of basic food that he needed. And so on the one hand, people criticizing this. On the other hand, it is precisely because there's a system with checks, balances, and judges that person gets out, that they don't sit there for a year. And in the asylum case that I mentioned in the introduction, controversial rule, people heard a lot about it when Trump uncorked it recently. Now, as of today, it's stopped, again, because judges are intervening. Walk us through those dynamics.
So in thinking through this segment, Ari, I pulled back and I put on kind of my political philosophy hat on, and it really is democracy, small d, at its best. It's pluralism. So if one part of the government is not functioning or is violating people's rights, in this case, the executive branch, you're seeing other branches come in, the courts pushing back. In Congress, we see the House of Representatives and also the people pushing back. So I think it is this struggle for folks, immigrants in the immigrant community. It is an uphill struggle, but at the same time, I do find some consolation in that we have this checks and balances working. The question is, again, the 2020. That is going to be decisive in what happens, whether those checks and balances are strengthened by, say, the Senate being taken to the Democratic side or the White House. But I think what is core, the core element in all of this is the people, because the people aren't just spreading the Know Your Rights campaigns. They're the ones who ultimately have to vote. So I think this is where we need to keep our focus on, is on the grassroots.
Professor DeFrancesco Soto, we learned a lot from you. We'll be coming back to you. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Thanks, Ari.